What I'm going to be speaking about this morning is ageing, housing and elder abuse. And just to sort of give this some context, at the moment this has actually been, or the whole elder abuse issue has been quite, has developed a very high profile. And of course this year we've actually had the final report of the Australian Law Reform Commission, which looked at a number of issues federally focused in relation to elder abuse. And also here in Western Australia we have got the Select Committee on Elder Abuse, which is taking submissions at the moment. And I'd encourage as many of you as possible to contribute to that inquiry. And their closing date I think is around about the 17th of November. Now why it's so important I feel for us to contribute to that one is that the ALRC report is clearly an extremely, it's a milestone in relation to this area of the law, but it focused very much obviously on federal issues, and there are constitutional limits therefore on what the feds can actually do. The more areas impacting upon elder abuse, including housing, are primarily within the remit of the states. So to get something, to get something happening, we really need to be speaking to our state politicians as well. So basically, there's a number of issues which we've encountered involving elder abuse and housing for older people. And of course, the most obvious one, and again, it's getting a bit of a profile, is in relation to you've got an older parent parent or parents who have a home. It may have been a very modest home in previous years, but given time and increasing property values, it's become quite a valuable asset. We've got this perfect storm as well, in that younger people are finding it more and more difficult to get into the housing market. If they have got into the housing market, it can be difficult to pay mortgages and raise children and so on. So you've got this, this term, if you like, inheritance impatience, which can lead to all sorts of difficulties. One of the problems with this whole area is that as parents, it's hard to think of these issues in the context of abuse, in the sense that we all want to help our families, we all want to see our families doing well. Where it becomes problematic and of course can become abusive is when this desire to assist starts to develop into almost into coercion. And again, it's very difficult to see where that can occur, or when that actually does occur. We've got various definitions of elder abuse. Very often they are going to involve, relationships, like the most common definitions refer to relationships of trust, or occurring within a relationship of trust. However, it's interesting, the World Health Organization defines elder financial abuse more broadly than that. And obviously it applies to people who are in a relationship of trust, so that would obviously be the parent-child relationship. But it also goes wider than that, and it also includes, individuals and institutions which can be involved in financial abuse issues. So if I just start with the narrower version at the moment, or I guess unfortunately the more common version, and that is the pressure that older people can be put under, whether parents or grandparents, by younger children or relatives, to assist them financially. And in relation to housing, of course, one of the big legal issues which they actually did deal with in the ALRC report was the assets for care arrangement. So basically the situation where you've got a parent or parents, and it's like, mum, dad, the house is too big for you, why don't you come and live with us, sell your house, we'll look after you for the rest of your life. And often this will happen too when somebody's been diagnosed with an illness or has had a fall, and if there's a period of vulnerability where people look, that sounds good, we don't want to go into a retirement village or anything like that, we want to be with family. Okay, so it sounds like the perfect arrangement, and when it works, It is. It's fantastic. But unfortunately, often it doesn't work, and the older person is in a very precarious legal position. Because what you have is you'll have an older person who will sell their property. They will usually give a pile of money to the kids, or they will invest in a granny flat and build the granny flat, which are quite expensive actually, and pop that in the backyard, and so the money, the money is gone. There are also Centrelink issues in relation to this that we won't have time to get into this morning. But of course, if it works, it's great. If it doesn't work, what you have from a legal perspective is the problem that it's the child's home. So if the child's marriage breaks up and they have to sell the home, does the parent have a claim on the property? If the relationship between the parent and the parent and the family break down, you don't always think it's not going to happen to you, but it does. But what invariably happens with these matters is they're family issues. There's no contract, so we've got nothing really to refer back to, and property law is really stacked against the older person, because the thing is, indefeasibility of title will say, well, this land belongs to the child, and you haven't got a claim on. Where are you on the title? All we can see is the title. This means that you've got to revert to the sometimes archaic principles of equity, where we'll have to try to establish, a trust. So, for example, a constructive trust. We say you've made, a contribution to this, and you're expecting something in return. The problem, of course, with that is when you're seeking equitable relief, you actually have to go to a superior court, and let's face it, it's expensive, it's time-consuming. How many people are really going to drag their kids, drag themselves indeed, through the court system? I mean, what we see so often when we're interviewing older people who've gone through these things is they want to keep the relationship with the children. You might sort of think, good grief, they've ripped you off, I'd never want to see them again. Well, actually, you do, and you want to keep that relationship going. So look, the law is, I could keep you entertained for hours, but, the law is problematic, and it does, it really, the older person is in a very, very precarious position. What the ALRC have recommended, I would have liked them to have gone further, to be honest, but what they have actually recommended is trying to bring these matters into the tribunals. So it's less of a, it's more time consuming, it's more economical. They're built for, so they're experienced with older people with issues involving older people, like with guardianship and administration. They've got mediation services available, etc. Not an ideal thing, but it is, and they've also made certain recommendations in relation to what happens in relation to the Centrelink context with this. But what we have seen with research we've done, and the people from COTA and Mary from APIA will obviously be able to probably tell you more stories than me. But this is a serious problem, and the law really hasn't got any answers for it. The other issue involving the family home, of course, is these financial arrangements. So we might sort of think about, like, again, the kids come and, oh, mum and dad, the business is failing, we're going to lose our home, or, can you go guarantor for us so we can actually, so we can buy something of our own or help us out over this hump. I mean, again, it's often these periods of crisis where it's kind of like, oh my goodness, this, and so that the people can enter into these arrangements. And I must say that the banks they've improved markedly over the last few years in relation to they've taken on board more of their responsibilities in relation to responsible lending. But the issue remains that if an older person goes as guarantor for a son, daughter, relative, whatever, the bottom line is if they can't pay and your only asset is your house, you're going to lose your house, which you don't want to happen as you're getting older. Now it's relatively recently, but we're just sort of seeing how it plays out on the ground. There's been new federal legislation in relation to responsible lending provisions. They've actually got, and in relation to reverse mortgages, which are another, keep me awake at night, but which are another. There's actually quite the legislation is actually very good in regulating, or I think it's as good as it can be, in regulating responsible lending in relation to lending to older people. Now, I'm not saying for a moment don't lend to older people, go for your life, but again, it's a fact of that you shouldn't be coerced into it, and then when you do, it has to be made absolutely crystal clear to people what risks they're taking on. Okay? So that is another another area with this. I'll look a couple of minutes. That was it. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I could talk. I'm really sorry. Okay, I'll finish really briefly with just when this does happen, there are also major problems with the law in relation to other forms of tenure, and also people who've been in home ownership and then they come out of it. So we are seeing problems in relation to residential tenancy. We've got a research project on the go at the moment with the Curtin Bank West Centre. Involving older people and security of tenure in the rental market. And I was going to talk about retirement villages and all that exciting stuff, but I'm sorry, but we're all aware of the problems there. So look, quite a few of you know me anyway. I'm on the Curtin website. If you've got any, I do have to run back to Curtin now, but if you've got any questions, happy to call me, phone me, email me. Okay.
Now we could just take a couple of questions for you now, and of course, as many of you may be able to invite Eileen along to talk about elder abuse and property at other events that you're holding. So if we grab a couple of questions from the floor. Thank you.
Is there any movement with building the confidence of older people? Because like I've got a friend, she goes, I gave my daughter who's an alcoholic a credit card to go and buy me a bottle of scotch, and then she bought all the Christmas presents on the credit card and stuff. It's almost like giving older people confidence to say no to their children if they haven't achieved that when they're younger and they've developed and they've still got not that confidence to be a tough love person.
Because I've got to write them down.
Yeah, I'm going to do all questions and then have a quick response. So, yes.
Just from a local government perspective, what role do you really see local governments playing in the elder abuse space? How can we contribute to our older population? So, yeah.
Any more questions before we invite Eileen to respond?
Look, it's a really difficult one because the thing is when people are in this situation, sometimes it doesn't matter how tough you are or think you are when it's your child in that situation. It's really difficult. What they're doing overseas, and actually they've had some success with it in the United States, is sometimes, I shouldn't be such a cynic, I don't say it sounds a bit naff, but I'm a lawyer, so that's probably what you want to say. But the thing is, like role playing. So basically, people who they have got issues with children or even adult children in the situation that you mentioned. They actually go through role and refusing, and that is actually the feedback from that is that it can be actually quite effective. I'm not aware of anybody who is doing it in Perth, but they work with psychologists that just sort of basically the learning to say no, and it's almost like a skill that has to be learned. It's very hard to learn when it's your children, but it's almost like a survival mechanism for some people. So if you want to email me, I actually have links to that literature, so I'd be more than happy to send it through to you. That'd be great. And look, with local government, it's close to it's coalface in the sense that you've got the communities on the ground. Again, what I would like to see is actually more awareness that older people have a comfortable space that they could go to, like put on by their local council, if they are experiencing abuse. Because there are helplines, but there are situations where people actually can't get to a helpline because they might be in a house with kids and the kids are the ones that are abusing them. So if they get out and about a bit, or even in shopping centres or something in a public area where people might feel comfortable to go, I think that would be really effective. And if you like, I'm more than happy to actually have a bit more of a think about that, because I live in Coburn, and they've actually been quite active in this space. So if you'd like to get in touch, I'd actually be happy to chat if you're all right.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you.